This video features the best tips and tricks for the newest brawler, Angelo. Everybody would get Angelo in star drops and on the star road on March 7th just before the new season starts. So make sure you watch to the end of this video to learn everything about the new Cupid turned mosquito, Angelo. Alright, so to start off this guide, let's go ahead and talk about his main attack, Take Aim. Angelo shoots out a long range arrow that gradually deals more damage. If the player auto aims his attack, Angelo only deals low damage. If the player aims their main attack, Angelo deals maximum damage in 2.5 seconds. If Angelo is knocked back, pulled, or stunned, his attack is cancelled. Angelo cannot heal from auto regeneration while charging his attack, and also the amount of damage that he does affects his super charge rate too. Now, kind of like Janet, right as you shoot your main attack, you want to already start holding down your next main attack to start charging up your arrows so it can deal more damage. You want to be as time efficient as you can, so treat his main attacks kind of like Janet. Now, Angelo's main attack is kind of similar to Janet's, but it's also similar to Hank's in a sense where the longer you charge it up, the more damage that you can deal. However, the difference compared with Angelo to Hank's main attack is that Angelo's arrow won't disappear or go away at all. So if you really need to focus when aiming down your target, you can technically hold down your main attack forever. Now, something that does make Angelo more of a higher skill cap brawler, especially with his main attack, is that his main attack's projectile is very narrow. With his main attack being so narrow, that is just gonna make it that much more difficult to hit your shots. But also his main attack projectile speed is the same as Lou's, so also just timing up your shots to connect onto the enemies is gonna take time and practice at first. Now, something that's very unique to Angelo when playing against him is you can see where he is aiming. When he is aiming down his main attack, you can see where his bow is pointing, so you can kind of predict who he might be aiming towards. It's a very small detail to keep an eye out for, but it can really help you get a head start where to move and dodge next. But alright, that's pretty much it for Angelo's main attack. Let's go ahead and talk about his super, Welcome to the Swamp. Angelo leaves a toxic area on the ground that lasts for 8 seconds. The damage can hit 9 times if the enemy remains standing on the area. If Angelo uses his main attack in the super area, he also deals 4 ticks of 25% of his damage over time to enemies over 3 seconds. Now, what's pretty cool about his super as well is you can actually use it to deal damage to enemies that could be possibly hiding behind obstacles or walls. However, something to keep in mind is that his super's radius is very small, so I wouldn't recommend this too much since it's not hard to escape the cloud before taking a lot of damage. However, it could be just great to keep in the back of your mind when playing Angelo. Now, as far as the amount of extra poison damage that he can do with his arrow when standing in the super, that all depends on how much he actually charges up his main attack. What I mean by this is that the longer that you are aiming down the sight, the more poison damage you can do over the next 3 seconds when connecting with your main attack. Now, let's just say theoretically you are standing inside of your super cloud and then you are charging up your main attack, and then you just want to all of a sudden just walk out of the poison cloud. You're actually not going to be able to do the extra poison with that next arrow. So all I gotta really say for this is that make sure that you are always standing in the cloud if you want your arrows to be poisoned with your next main attack. Because yes, even though you are starting off charging your next main attack inside of the poison cloud, if you end up shooting your arrow outside of the poison cloud, it's not going to have the extra poison on it. Also, another thing to just keep in mind when playing Angelo and using his super is that wherever you actually activate it, that is where it's going to be placed. So what I recommend with this tip is to activate your super in an area where you know that you can stand inside of it as long as possible to get that most amount of value that you can from it. Now, a pretty cool thing that I actually learned about Angelo is if you can actually manage to chain his super, you can actually place 2 supers or even more if you can for whatever reason on top of each other and actually have the poison doubled in damage. What I kind of mean by this is the super's poison cloud damage will actually stack up if you can place it on top of each other, and this will help you just deal more damage if you can manage to chain it well. Okay, so we talked about his main attack, we talked about his super, now let's get into his gadgets, but the first one I want to talk about is going to be Stinging Flight. When used, Angelo jumps forward in the direction he's facing, kind of similar to Brock's Rocket Lease's gadget. This will kind of just allow him to jump over walls, water, or other obstacles. If he activates his gadget next to an enemy, he will actually be able to do 660 damage to them. If he needs to use this gadget to cross over a larger amount of blocks or over over lakes, his jumping distance will be increased up to a limit or to the nearest piece of ground. Now while in the air, Angelo is going to be completely immune to all damage besides status effects and damage applied over time. Now like I stated earlier, this gadget is very similar to Brock's Rocket Lace's gadget to the point where you can actually, yes, jump into the air but also deal damage to the enemies. So if you're kind of struggling to defeat an enemy at a close range and they are like very low, a good option for you could kind of just be to just use that gadget and deal that 660 damage to just finish them off right there. Now yes, his gadget is very similar to Eve's one where you can kind of jump into the air, or like I just said, Brock's one, you know, but it's actually even better because the amount of distance that you can travel when jumping is actually even farther than Brock and Eve's. So when you're kind of jumping away using this gadget, it'll just increase the distance between you and the enemies to buy you time so you can wind up that arrow so you can deal more damage to them. Nice, even though you can use this gadget to kind of jump away and increase the distance between you and the enemy, you can even use it to jump closer to the enemies and get near them. If you notice that the enemies are low or you want to play aggro for whatever reason, this gadget can help you accomplish that. This gadget will just be helpful in general to self-pass the ball to yourself in Brawl Ball and make a flashy play to score some goals. Now something that I actually tested is that you can still use this gadget while you're aiming down your main attack. Now yes, even though using your gadget while you're aiming down your attack will end up cancelling your attack, it can still be useful to make a getaway when in a tight situation. But okay, that's gonna be it for Stinging Flight. Let's talk about his second gadget, Master Fletcher. Activating this gadget allows Angelo's next attack to pass through enemies and walls, kinda similar to Mandy's Cookie Crumbs gadget. Now this gadget does not affect the amount of damage the attack does. Now as you can imagine, this gadget is going to be paired very well with his super. You can place your super behind a wall and then use your gadget to pierce through everything to hit the enemies and deal the extra poison damage from the cloud. Now another specific situation where this gadget is going to be very handy is inside a showdown, because in some specific showdown maps you can use this gadget to kind of deal damage to multiple boxes at the same time, and you can even use it to pierce through it to hit enemies that may be trying to maneuver around the boxes. Now yes, as you can imagine, like mostly in those kind of like 3v3 game modes, you can use this gadget to pierce through walls and hit an enemy that's either like trying to heal up or like just hide in general behind an obstacle. I mean, kind of like just with Mandy, you know, it's just a great way to kind of catch the enemies off guard, and then who knows, it could get you a lot of kills. Now, of course, Angelo is kind of a long-range sharpshooter sniper brawler, you know, similar to Mandy and the other sharpshooters, so you gotta be playing him in game modes like Bounty, Wipeout, and Knockout. I mean, this is just gonna be the most ideal game modes for him because this is where you can really catch people like running away or trying to heal up, and that is when you can use this gadget to pierce through the obstacles and hit them and get them down. Now, a very common mistake I see a lot of Angelo players actually doing is they're kind of using this gadget as shooting into a bush blindly. If you can, what I'd recommend doing is using your super, then hitting the enemy with your poison arrows so that they are taking damage inside of the bush. This will just make it way easier for you to see where they are and have a higher success rate when using this gadget. But okay, we went over both of his gadgets. Now let's go and talk about his star powers, but the first one I'm going to go over is going to be Empower. Now with Empower, this star power allows Angelo to heal 600 health per second by standing in his super's area of effect. Since his super lasts for 8 seconds and he can heal 600 health per second, he can actually heal up for 4,800 health in total. Now a huge rookie mistake that I see a lot of Angelo players actually doing is they think that his super is going to end up healing his teammates. Like, no, it doesn't heal teammates, only Angelo. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you notice that your teammates are low and they are begging for some assistance in healing up, just use it for yourself and stay alive to just continue the pressure, and that way you can just help your team out that way. So you know how earlier I was talking about like how you can actually stack his supers and chain it and you can double the amount of poison damage that you can do? However, if you try to like stack your supers and cycle it, the healing will not stack whatsoever. So if you need to use your super to heal up or keep control of the map for that specific scenario, do not use your super until the first one is completely gone. You might as well just wait until the first one is done so that by the time that one is done, then you can just place down the next one since the healings don't stack. Now in case you're being pressured like by an assassin or another aggro brawler and you are very low trying to run away, just go ahead and use his super with this star power. It can just be a great asset to Angelo's kit because even if you gain like say 1,000 health for example, it can just help you take some more damage while you run away or try to hide. Now I really love this star power because since like Angelo cannot like auto regenerate his health when he's aiming down his main attack, I mean you gotta be running this star power. Just having this star power in general will just help you heal while you're aiming down your main attacks, and it's just useful to just keep up your health and stay alive a lot longer. But okay, that's it for Empower. Now let's go and talk about his second star power, Flow. When Angelo moves on water, his movement speed is increased by 25%. Now, kind of just to get this out of the way, I realistically don't see this star power being better than Empower, because having the healing when standing in your super using the Empower star power, it just makes Angelo that much more annoying to deal with and more difficult to take him down. However, this star power can be helpful in other specific scenarios in 3v3 or inside a showdown if you like kind of struggle with dodging. So since you're going to be getting that additional movement speed, it should make Angelo a lot easier to maneuver when you're trying to dodge the incoming projectiles. Now, where I do see the star power coming in handy is in very specific 3v3 game modes with a lot of water, or in showdown maps that have a lot of water as well, because you know those showdown maps tend to be bigger. So if you're watching this video and you are a showdown main, then you might want to consider running Flow on maps that have a lot of water to make it easier to escape. Because yes, being able to survive his showdown is very important, or you can even use this star power to close down the distance between the enemies when chasing them down. Granted, having an additional movement speed with any brawler is very helpful. However, with a brawler like Angelo, where he doesn't have any auto regeneration when charging his main attack, being able to have the Empower star power with his super comes in very handy to help him stay alive when he's trying to attack people. But okay, that's gonna be it for his star powers. Let's go over his gears now. The first one I'm gonna talk about that you guys gotta be using is gonna be damage gear. Now, of course, with the damage gear, as you guys all know, you get a 15% extra damage buff when you fall below 50% health. Now, a brawler like Angelo, you know, he's a sharpshooter long range brawler. He doesn't have the most amount of health in the game, so when he does fall below that 50% health, it can really help him deal more damage to get enemies down. Of course, this will stack with the poison that he does from his super or just his main attacks in general, so it can really help him finish off enemies unexpectedly. And especially if you guys are auto-aiming Angelo's main attacks and he does like 400 damage or something like that at max level, like yeah, you can really benefit from running the damage gear, so I do recommend going damage gear first. Now, the second gear I recommend going with Angelo is going to be the gadget charge gear. Now, the gadget charge gear is very self-explanatory. If you guys don't know, like you just get that additional gadget that you can use throughout the match. Now, no matter whichever gadget you use, whether if it's Master Fletcher or the Stinging Flight gadget, it's just going to come in very handy to have an additional gadget, whichever one you pick, because yes, they are both going to be good for their own scenarios. Well, there you guys go, a complete guide on how to play Angelo. I really recommend getting him because, you know, even though he is a more of a higher skill cap brawler, he does have a lot of potential to be a very solid pick in a lot of different game modes and maps. Well, anyway guys, if you guys enjoyed that brawler guide, I highly recommend go check out this brawler guide right here.